nice to see your bright, shining faces. Now, before I get started here, I just wanted to ask all of you, how many believe everything in life happens for a reason? Okay. How many believe it's just kind of a random coincidences, chain of events? Okay. Yeah, how many are uncertain? How many want me to stop asking questions and just get on with it? All right, well, let's go. I'm sure all of you are very good at forgiving other people, but I had a heck of a time. When we can't find it in our hearts to forgive other people, we're not hurting the other person, we're only hurting ourselves. We're impeding our growth as a spiritual being. Our souls are hardwired to be happy, harmonious, and prosperous. Just like there's laws that govern Elkhorn and the state of Wisconsin and the nation, there's laws that govern this universe. And if we're not in harmony with these laws, we're creating disharmony in our lives and blocking our own way to happiness. Now, next time someone's behaviors troubles you, just remind yourself all sorts of factors influence the way a person acts. After all, no one is perfect. Now, I have a few stories about trying to forgive that I'd like to share with you. Let me take you back to April 1973. It's the time of the Ford Pinto, groovy bell-bottom jeans and tie-dye t-shirts, and Secretariat won the Triple Crown that year. So I got up for school like any other day, but on this day, my mom said, "You're not going to go to school. We're all going to go see a show at the old Chicago amphitheater." No school? Woohoo! So my mom told us she's going to go out and get gas for the car, and then when she gets home, we're going to leave. So my mom got home, backed the car in the garage, closed the overhead door, came through the basement, up the stairs, and into the kitchen, and in a few minutes, she asked us if we wanted any ice cream. Ice cream? My sisters bolted up the stairs and I followed them. They grabbed their ice cream, went downstairs, and I just looked at mine for a second. And I said, "Mommy, what are these little crushed up white things with an S on them doing in my ice cream?" And she said, "Oh, that S? That just means you're special." Well, I knew I was a good kid, so I didn't give it a second thought. I just took my ice cream and went downstairs. The S was for summoning sleeping pills. So, in a little bit, my mom came down with a blanket draped over her arm, a box of nails, and a hammer. And I said, "What's that for, Mommy?" And as she began to nail the blanket to the wall, the doorway, she said, "It's a surprise for your daddy when he gets home from work today." After that, after she finished nailing the blanket to the doorway, she walked out the basement, up the stairs of the garage, started the car, got out of the car, and walked out the back access door. I don't recall seeing my mom after that. Before too long, I started to feel woozy and sick. My eyes started to burn. I could taste the filthy carbon monoxide billowing in from the garage, and it coated the inside of my nose. As I contemplated how and why this could be happening to me, a virgin thought entered my mind. This is what death feels like. You are going to die. And I wasn't freaked out. I was actually quite peaceful and calm. And I just closed my eyes and I went to sleep. And literally, out of a dead sleep, as clear as I'm speaking to you right now, a voice came into my head and said, "Get up and go for the door. Go for the door." I obediently opened my eyes and stood up. Now, at this point, I was intoxicated by the fumes and in this hazy, dreamlike state. But I was making my way across that room. And now I approached my sisters, my younger and older sister, that are laying lifeless on the floor. And I so desperately wanted to try to help them. But I knew I didn't have much strength left, and if I did, it would surely be the end of Saul. So I finally made my way to that basement door and up the steps, and the car's just like pouring the exhaust on me. And I'm trying to get this door open, but once you have it that, this door was the door that always would stick. But I finally got this door open, and now I'm on like the threshold of life and death here. So I'm trying to take in a breath of this fresh spring air to fill my lungs, and then try to yell out for help. And just a little meager help came out of me. And I looked around, and we have this 6-foot privacy fence in my backyard, and it's 1973. I mean, who's out of their house now, right? So I realized if I didn't scream louder, nobody's going to hear me. So with every ounce of strength that I had, I gave it everything that I had left inside of me. Help! But it wasn't loud enough to wake a sleeping baby. So then all of a sudden, I felt this piercing grip around both of my arms. And then somebody began to shake me violently, screaming, "Robert! Robert!" And I couldn't focus my eyes at the moment, and I didn't recognize the voice. And as soon as I was able to get my eyes into focus, it was my mother. And then I had these flurry of thoughts that just raced through my mind. Where have you been? Why did you leave me? Why did you let this happen to me? And then the grave reality set in. Is she going to finish me off? Well, apparently, that was my mother finding me outside was enough to snap her out of it, as a result, saving my sisters and I. But as you might be able to imagine, all sorts of behavior issues and repercussions happened because of that incident. Back then, we didn't have any therapy or counseling. I mean, we couldn't afford it. So we just picked up the pieces to our life, tried to put them together the best we could, and we moved on. How do you forgive someone? How do you forgive your own mother for trying to murder you? Several years later, at 15, I decided with a friend of mine to take the family car out for a joyride. Well, it was a pretty joyful ride for about 30 minutes. We ended up on some very hilly roads, and I wanted to see if I could get this car airborne. Not airborne. I wanted to see if I could get this car to fly. Back then, I was fearless and adventurous. Not very smart or good at physics, but I was fearless and adventurous. The only casualty that night was the car. It was a total loss. Somehow my friend and I survived rolling the car, according to eyewitnesses, several hundred feet. Seriously though, my friend and I were very fortunate to walk away from a very serious accident. And I told my friend, I said, there is no way I am going home. So from Barrington, Illinois, I hitchhiked all the way down to Daytona Beach, Florida, where I lived on the streets for 3 months. I got involved in drugs, selling drugs, and I was also sexually abused a number of times. How can you forgive an adult for sexually abusing you? A little bit later in my teens, at 19, things kind of get a little bit tamer for me. And I met a girl for the very first time, and I fell in love. And we dated for nearly 10 months, and then in April of 1981, I decided to ask Carol to marry me. A couple days later, we're just sitting in my room laughing, talking, and having a great time until we got a phone call from my best friend, Bob. Now, all Bob said was, "You guys want to go up to Wisconsin?" So I went upstairs to ask Carol, and as soon as I went up there to ask her, this grave, eerie, glooming mood change, 180 degrees. It was spine chilling. I think the hair is standing up on my neck right now. And so I wasn't into intuition or vibes or anything like that back then. But I sensed that Carol knew something. And I felt something, but I just kind of, let it roll off me as some strange coincidence. So on the way up there to Wisconsin, we went with a coworker as well. So Carol and I sat in the back seat, and Carol sat behind the passenger, and I sat behind the driver. So we got up there, we ate, we drank, we had a good time, we shot pool and played foosball, and we decided to come home early that night to avoid all the other people that were drinking on the road as well. So when we decided to leave, we looked around, we couldn't find Carol, so we decided to split up. So I even looked at had a lady go check the women's restroom to no avail. She was not there. So then I went outside to look, and then I could see her in the distance, standing by the car. And where she was standing, that was the back seat, but it was behind the driver. And she had her hand on the door handle, and her head down, and her beautiful strawberry blonde hair covering her face. That feeling I had in my room came back to me again. So we were only a few miles away from the safety and comfort from our home when a car pulled up to us on the highway, swerved into our lane, knocked our speeding car over the grassy median, and we were broadsided by another car. After surgery, when I woke up in intensive care, a few days later, I learned that Carol had been killed, along with my best friend Bob. After the shock began to wear off, I began to get angry, very angry at God. How could you let this happen? They were young, pure, and innocent. Why did you take them from me? How do you forgive God for taking the two people that meant the most to you in your life? More than a year had passed, and I had the most incredible spiritual experience of my life. And it allowed me to loosen my memory on Carol and have peace back into my life. In the summer of '87, a few years later, I now met my beautiful wife, Leslie. We've been married for over 30 years now. And we had 4 amazing children, one of which is with me today, Kara. And years passed, and we go through typical financial struggles like many families do, typical until 2007, when the markets crashed. My wife, 4 small children, and I ended up homeless. We reached out to our family and friends, but no one would or could help us. I mean, didn't they understand we had no place to go, no money? I would have helped them if they would have came to me. It made me so mad. But it didn't take me too long to realize that being homeless finally forced me to stop and think about the way I was thinking and reflect on my life. And one of the things that I realized was I would always focus on the negative and what could go wrong, instead of the positive and what could go right. So I began to watch videos, read, and research as to why I had to go through so much hardship, adversity, and suffering in my life. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But how do you forgive your friends and family for denying you help in your time of need? This is from Aiden Tozer. As sunlight falls free on the open field, So the knowledge of the holy God is a free gift to men who are open to receive it. But this knowledge is difficult because there are conditions to be met, and the obstinate nature of fallen man does not take kindly to them. The yearning to know what cannot be known, to comprehend the incomprehensible, to taste and touch the unapproachable, arises from the image of God in the nature of man. Deep calleth unto deep, and thou polluted and landlocked by the mighty disaster theologians call the fall, the soul senses its origin and longs to return to its source. The soul senses its origin and longs to return to its source. Aidan left us some very important clues. What is Aidan trying to tell us? To err is human, to forgive divine. Why is forgiving divine? Is forgiveness like many other things throughout human history that have been distorted, hidden, or kept from humanity? Is there more to forgiveness which makes it divine? Forgiveness in itself can be challenging. It takes courage, heart, strength, understanding, and at times, surrendering of the ego. Forgiveness left me with many unanswered questions. In my mind, I had forgiven, although my heart still felt pain. Was my heart in need of a reason, understanding, or justification as to why these horrific things had occurred in my life? In addition to letting go of anger, grudge, and resentment, my heart was revealing there was more for me to learn about forgiveness. I began to ask the questions, why are people always doing me wrong? Why do these horrific things happen to me? Why did I have to go through so much suffering in my life? Even though I forgive, why can't I feel it in my heart? Why does my heart still experience pain? What's the reason for it? I didn't do anything wrong. Who am I to deserve this? I'm just a normal man. I mean, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Did you ever think about it? Do you know who you are? By questioning and looking inward and having a childlike heart is how I discovered the gateway of forgiveness and what lies beyond this gateway. When I asked the question, who am I? Mystically, whoosh, the gate opened and I entered. In Genesis it states, we were created in the image of God. I've heard that many times, but I never gave it the thought it deserved. When I was presented with this, it made a huge impact and transformed my life. And as a result, it allowed many other things to fall into place. Now, let's explore this a little more, shall we? So, what I have here, I was pretty sure God was going to be here, but I never leave home without him. So let's just say this is God, okay? And if we were going to describe God, how would we describe God? I know we could probably go on for days here, but I kind of narrowed it down to a few things. So I would say God is omniscient, all-knowing. I would say God that is omnipotent, all-powerful. And I would say that God is imbued with this great, profound, benevolent love. So would you agree that God is all-knowing, omniscient, all-powerful, omnipotent, and full of this great, benevolent love? Would you agree with me? Okay. I know there's more we can go on, but let's just go with those two for the sake of time. Okay. So, now, all I'm going to do, watch very closely here. Just going to take a piece off of here, squish this up so it doesn't fall on the floor. Okay. Now, has anything changed with these? This is basically still the same as this, right? So this has omniscience, omnipotence, and this great love, right? And this must have the same thing, correct? So it's just like a pie. If I have an apple pie, and I take a piece of pie, cut it, take the piece of the pie has all the same ingredients as the whole pie did, right? So this piece contains the omniscience, the omnipotence, and this great benevolent love. This is you. This contains omniscience, omnipotence, and this great benevolent love. This is you. This piece contains the omniscience, the omnipotence, and this great benevolent love. This is you in your multi-dimensional self. Your soul, your consciousness, your energy, however you want to call it. Now let's say you decide you want to come down to earth, okay? You're going to be born into a physical body, but you can't go down there like this, right? You can't function. You need a human body. So when you're born into a human body, you have no memory of who you are, where you were, or how you got to earth. Now from birth, your subconscious mind accepts all information from your environment without discernment. That's because your conscious mind is not developed till 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And that has the ability to accept and reject information. But your conscious mind, regardless if the information is accurate or inaccurate, constructive or deconstructive, truth or false, it all goes in. In short, this is how you become further disconnected from who you are and how your belief systems are established. So for example, as a child, most of us had a thought. Although false, it was planted into our subconscious mind. Now this thought transmuted into truth and became part of our belief system. What I'm referring to is a big man, kind of jovial, wears a red suit. You see him maybe once a year. This is why some children continue to believe in fictitious characters in a red suit, among others, past the ages of 6, 7, 8, because their subconscious mind has been programmed. And the subconscious mind runs the show. Now, I used to wear these around the house, to work, when I went shopping. These are called the veils of delusion, or the veils of ignorance. Or you can call them false beliefs. In the same way, a thought was planted into our subconscious mind about the man in the red suit. False beliefs were also planted into humanity. However, many people mistakenly assume these false beliefs for truth. Now, these false beliefs have been preventing us from reconnecting with who we really are. Now, when we remove these veils of delusion and these veils of ignorance, or these false beliefs, the result is a higher sense of awareness. Now, this heightened sense of awareness brings us to the realization that hardship, adversity, and suffering in life does happen for a reason. along with allowing us the opportunity to awaken to who we really are, and once again, reconnect with our higher self. By passing through the gateway of forgiveness, I was guided to a higher understanding of who I am. My experiences in life happened for a reason. As a result, I've come to understand and accept life is perfect the way it is. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Thank you, Wayne Dyer. Intellectually, I had forgiven those who wronged me. However, it wasn't until I had the awareness to go beyond the gateway of forgiveness, which guided me on a path to a higher understanding of who I am. This healed my heart and allowed me to experience forgiveness in the depth of the heart of my soul. Being fortified with the preceding understanding of who I am, I was able to forgive my mother. I was able to forgive the man that sexually abused me. I was able to forgive God. And I was able to forgive my family and friends. I'm grateful for reconnecting with my higher self. Do you remember him? Get up and go for the door. Go for the door. When I look back on these precious experiences in my life, I realize not only did they provide me a deeper understanding about forgiveness, but brought me full circle to where I'm supposed to be right now, in front of all of you. You still may experience challenges in your life, but now you're armed with a greater understanding, and these challenges will no longer seem as daunting. You are now well equipped with a fresh perspective, deeper insight, and a knowing that you are a powerful being. You are a beautiful soul. Awaken to the reality of your authentic self. You contain the identical characteristics, essence, and benevolent love as God. These qualities have always been within you, and they will always be within you. Thank you.